Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Time, Money, Resources, where I'll be interviewing different guests around different aspects of business to help business owners and marketers stay smart and stay lean. I'm super excited to introduce my guest today, Patrick Palella. He's got a crazy background in business and being a CEO of multiple different companies, and he's seen a lot of crazy stuff. And, speaking of crazy, you should also check out his book, Buzz Ride, because he's super into disruption and he became an Uber driver for the fun of it, just to see what it was about. So if you want to talk crazy and you want to talk business, Patrick's your guy. So super excited to have you here, Pat. Why don't we start with you giving a little bit more of the audience a bit more about your background and kind of a brief overview of your experience and what you've done.
Sure. Spent the first 15 years of my business in the investment industry, many moons ago. And then I went into higher education, which led me into corporate turnarounds. Not a technologist, but it seems like I always get technology companies thrown at my lap. Turned around a very exciting web and video development company in the late 90s. That was a fun experience, and we were very successful at it. And then I moved on to a data center, turned that around. That was also very interesting, and picking up knowledge along the way. I've done everything from go in and have to turn around a mortgage bank to transportation companies, you name it. My most recent venture, I'm very excited about. It's a company called Touch CR. We're in the digital marketing space to a very deep level. We're doing some pretty challenging and progressive products that people really are surprised at what we're doing. Our ability to identify clients, we all know the 80-20 rule. 80% of your business, 20% of your clients. Everybody wants more of those 20%. Our ability to identify that 20% and really zero in on it so you can target your ad spend and target your marketing dollars has it's really been an exciting endeavor, and it's doing well. So we're in the direct to consumer and the direct response space, and I've learned a lot in the last few months, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah,
so that's me in a nutshell.
I'm really excited to dive in a little bit more around what you guys are doing and the optimization of it, because I think that's super important today. But before we get into that, your background as a CEO, I want to talk about leadership, because, this is at least my first crisis during my career. Being a millennial, I've lived through a lot of crises, so I've been impacted personally by them, but never from a career standpoint. So, and I know there's a lot of millennial CEOs now, especially on the older millennial side. And I think for a lot of people, it's their first crisis that they're probably going through. So talk to me a little bit more about, leadership during a crisis and your predictions around what companies should start thinking about when COVID is over, and also what they should be thinking about for prepping for either round 2 or future pandemics.
Well, to live through crises, and I broke into the investment industry when interest rates when the money market fund rates were 22%. Can you imagine that? You couldn't even fathom that. And I've seen the savings and loan crisis, and then I saw we saw the various situations in the Middle East unfold, and then obviously the bank crisis in 2008. Crises often look pretty, when you're in the midst of it, look pretty daunting. This is a incredibly scary crisis because it's invisible. It affects everyone, every industry, every age, every demographic. We feel helpless because we can't fight against it. I think the first thing I want to say is that if you watch the news nonstop, you're liable to get pretty depressed. But my belief, and I'm not going to start waving the flag, but we are descendants from people who in one day had their navy wiped out, and months later were a real nautical force, when a bunch of people who had maybe never put a rivet gun in their hand or done anything like that went to work. I think we're going to work on this, but it's not going to be easy. And I don't think that this will be an uncommon situation to us. And I think there may be more waves. I'm kind of tired of hearing the new norm. That's, when the new norm evolves. I've learned, and the way I run things is I manage in a series of time periods. I have to manage for today. I have to manage for this month. And then I have to manage for the quarter and the year. So in making a critical decision, I try and lay how that decision is going to affect the organization over those various time periods. Simultaneously, on the other hand, I have stakeholders. I have capital, customers, vendors, employees, and the people we come to touch with as neighbors and being corporate citizens. No one of those stakeholders is more important than the other. So as you look at the time frames that I lay out, and you rotate through the different stakeholders, you have to really sit down and say, what is going to happen here on this day? You're trying to assess it. How will this impact my employees? How will this impact my customers? How will this impact capital? And weigh it all out and try and make the best informed decision you can. And right now we are we're flying blind. Every day more and more CEOs are saying that they're not giving guidance for the next year as far as, forecasting what their companies are going to do. So as a nation, economically, we may be flying blind. It's truly going to be a challenge, because I think that we've been blessed pretty much the last, since 2009, with a nice steady growth rate. And, be it 2% or 4%, we were growing. And that was carrying industries and companies with it, where now certain industries may not be growing. And you're going to have to really put your management hat on and think, how am I going to add value to my customers? How am I going to enhance the lives of my employees? How am I going to be respectful with my vendors but get the greatest value for capital? It's not going to be as easy as it was before this. And that to me, I think is going to truly be something interesting to watch. I mean, you watch TV, we're getting, the government's coming to aid. And I looked at some of these aid packages and the complexity of them, and just this SBA thing alone. I'm blessed where I have some great legal talent. I have good accounting talent that I can draw on. We have great banking relationships. But I think about the mom and pop who owns the dry cleaners or the auto parts store, or the true small business person. They look at this thing, and the amount of paperwork is pretty substantial. And also, I think we have this huge challenge where our banking world is pretty much digital and the SBA is analog.
Oh, you froze.
Therein lies another problem of waiting and the like. So the amount of challenges in this situation that we are going to see when we go back to work, how we go back to work, we've never seen this script. I mean, most of us weren't around in 1919, the last time this happened. And it's a totally different world, from how we live and the speed of data transfer and just the amount we can get done. So it's going to be very interesting to watch this evolve and to see an economy that was really roaring along, and you saw markets at an all-time high and unemployment at ridiculous lows, to all of a sudden get shut down and knee-jerked.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, these are fascinating yet scary times. So how we come out of this, I wouldn't venture, but we're going to have to be smarter. We're also going to have to be more tolerant of people.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have to be more understanding of fellow business people.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe we maybe extend terms a little bit better, or have to be a tad more understanding. I'm hoping that happens with a lot of situations with mortgages and rents for individuals as well as businesses. This external shock is like nothing we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
So how we come out of it, I think it's going to be slowly and painfully. And sadly, I don't think that the government, if this thing goes out, let's say 60 or 90 days, I don't think we can keep printing money at this pace.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, that's got to dry up too. So I hope that science can move faster than than we expect it to.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, it's a massive problem. So I wish I had the answers.
Yeah, well, those are all amazing points, and that's awesome insight, and I always appreciate your insight. I want to touch on a couple of things. So, talking about being like more tolerant of people, and then also, talking about government, if this does go 60 to 90 days and we don't have the ability to just print money, also coupled with the fact that, I've been seeing a lot of businesses pivot very, very quickly to solve new challenges. Clothing retailers converting production lines to make masks, breweries converting their production lines to produce hand sanitizer, going off the fact of a little bit of innovation, a little bit of this tolerance, and a little bit of this inability for government to support everyone forever. What are maybe either creative solutions you've thought about or ideas for business owners to get a little crafty? And I think when people kind of come out of this shell shock state and a little bit of the I almost want to say denial, right? It's like it was so shocking that I think a lot of people might still be semi in denial about everything. And if it does take a while for things to turn around, what are some potential solutions or ideas you might have around how people can be smarter about how they pool their resources together or come up with new innovations for how they can, start a new business if they were a restaurant owner and now need to do something totally different? Like, it might be a little brainstorming here, but what are some things that either you've been kind of thinking about or that people should recognize?
Well, I mean, the one area that I've been thinking a great deal about, because we're all about data aggregation and data analysis, is, and I don't want Big Brother watching us, but there is a national medical vaccination database that you and I are in. So they know when we were vaccinated and what vaccines we've had and this and that I think we are going to need some form of area where exposed, not exposed, had it, not had it. From the standpoint that if that were in place now and we can plug into it and we were able to get people tested efficiently, which is another big problem, at some point I could see, okay, we have a percentage of this population that has already had the disease, had the virus and survived. They can assimilate back to work. We have a group of people who don't have asthma, diabetes, heart conditions, and are within a certain age group. the probability of anything, okay, we can start easing some of them back to work. You can take, in a way, I hate to use this term, but your protected class over 65, cancer survivors, bad diabetics, bad asthmatics. We can take those people and say, they need to be quarantined a bit longer. We need to protect them and slowly migrate and get the wheels of commerce going. I think the concept that we're going to sit here for 60 or 90 days, wake up and go, okay, let's turn the switch on. Class is out. It's, everybody back to work. I don't think that's going to happen. And I think that if we had a greater handle right now and maybe learn from this, that we should create this kind of database, and it would all be HIPAA protected, mind you, that we would know, okay, this segment of the population can go back to work. This can't. And then as immunities grow, as vaccines are created, everybody emerges back. I see the use of database management is critical there. I think we have the tools, but we were kind of, decided on this. Nobody thought that this some magnitude would ever happen, and it did. So as far as using technology, turning on a dime where we're at, I've played with the concept, and it would take somebody much bigger than us, like an Oracle or a Microsoft, to put something like that together in conjunction with the government. But I think it might be needed, and I'm not one who likes to give my information to the government. I mean, it's not one of my favorite things, but if it helps the economy grow and it helps my fellow man be safe, then I'll do it. And the other thing that scares me is, we talk about the death toll from the virus. Mm-hmm. There's also a severe death toll if we don't reopen the economy, through depression, through frustration. I mean, it is a balancing act, but I think that it should be more of all right, this group is ready to go. Let's get it started. That group is ready to go. Let's get it started. Mm-hmm. So the devastation is not twofold, because that I am worried about.
Yeah, those are all very fair points. But to turn it in more of a positive light, so we can get out of the doomsday grim, the aspect of like data repositories and, giving away personal information in light of like our fellow man or woman, and making sure that people have the right information so we can do something like that. But I kind of want to tie it into what you're doing now with like Touch CR and the data you guys are collecting. How are you seeing behavior shift right now, and what are opportunities that you guys are identifying with how people are moving to online world, shopping online, everything right now is online. What are some trends that you're seeing that you're excited about for the brands that you're working with, and things that companies need to be thinking about regardless of crisis?
Well, it's we do a lot of work with cosmetic companies and supplement companies, and sales have been steady, very steady. And, historically, in a severe recession or depression, the two industries that do the best are the traditional old movie industry, which we can't go do because theaters are closed, and cosmetics. It's a cheap way to feel good immediately, right? It takes you out of maybe your realm of where you're at.
We got cosmetics Zoom calls, right?
And
all the time.
And as far as supplements go, I think there's a lot of people who are very conscientious about keeping their resistance up, their immunity system strong. So they're moving at a steady pace. Obviously, we've all seen that Amazon for non-essential things is not as fast as it was 5 weeks ago. And that makes sense. I mean, we're also seeing, and I'm not going to go doom and gloom, but we're seeing the pressure on the frontline people
Mm-hmm.
and the pressure of the people in the fulfillment centers. That even though we're in this automated world, there's still a human element that drives it.
Mm-hmm.
The men and women driving, between the distribution centers and the trucks, the people sorting, excuse me, in the distribution centers, that last mile, the people bringing it to your door. So as automated as we are, we're still highly dependent on people, which is good. But it also exposes, we've seen, the backlash at some distribution centers, some people getting rightfully concerned about their health and their conditions. And again, all things we didn't expect that we need to address. And in addressing these things creates opportunity, creates, thought, creates, here again, that manager's got to think of capital, customer, employee, right? Yeah, the capital wants to keep making money and the customer wants their package that afternoon, and we have to worry about the health of the person in between. So how do we weigh these out? So I think that a lot of good is going to come out of this, from the standpoint that people are going to have to step back and take a deep breath, which this is a great time to use for this, and say, okay, maybe going forward, we're going to have to, instead of be a 3-shift day, be a 4-shift day, and shrink the working hour. Maybe we're going to have to space people out. Maybe we're going to have to address expectations of our clients, that you're not going to get your box tomorrow. Mm-hmm. You're going to get it in 2 days or 3 days. Mm-hmm. See, I come from the time when I was a child, that when you sent away for something, they used to say allow 6 weeks for shipping and handling. That by the time you got what you ordered, you forgot what it was, and you're like, oh, what is this? I mean, literally, it was 6 weeks. Woo! So my point being is, we're going to have to go and maybe adjust some expectations, maybe take a deep breath and realize that, yes, we are moving to be an extremely efficient economy. And I think we're going to learn some lessons about our supply chain, mm-hmm. and where things are produced. And I think, I'm one of the things that you and I have talked about, and it's probably going to take a question of yours away from you, is what is a common mistake I see, right? Which goes into your question about evolving, right? Mm-hmm. I can tell you, especially in the tech area, this is a real common problem. There's a tendency to hire people in anticipation of a need, or buy resources in anticipation of a need, where I'm kind of the type of manager that if I'm straining capacity for a few weeks, the need is here. Now we hire the person. Or if my resources hit a certain level on the bottom, now they need to be replenished. And the concept of, I am going to buy it today because we are going to grow into this, is to me, a severe, even in normal times, forget about now, mm-hmm. is a detriment. And, I think that cash management is going to become a bigger skill set than ever needed before. We can't be sloppy. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that, from where I sit with the organization I'm with, I know I can look out on the horizon, and I know that everybody's going to be working for a prolonged period of time, and I have that luxury as a manager. But we didn't go crazy, so to speak, in certain areas. It's almost like a depression person mentality that I think that more and more people are going to start to say, you know, I'm going to do more in reserves. I think you may see more large companies say, we're not going to buy back stock. We're going to keep more capital in case another wave like this hits. Because if another wave hits and the government has a highly leveraged balance sheet, there may not be any more money.
Yeah.
And what scares me and I don't want to see happen is I don't want to see us get to a point where it's survival of the fittest in two areas, physically and fiscally, because then we're going to have real chaos. So my point being is that buy and hire on need, not in anticipation of need, and that is something that I have seen quite a bit of. That is sometimes painful to rectify, but if you want a sustainable organization, you have to live that way. So absolutely. I think that thought process, smart cash management, is going to be a really, really big play coming out of this.
Going off that point, because I know we've seen a lot of, poor cash management over the years, and I think there's kind of this general sentiment right now that all these corporations who were supposed to take care of their people, who are no longer taking care of their people, and we've kind of gotten away from the humanitarian side of things. What's your stance on entrepreneurship today? Like, do you think we're going to see a massive surge of people wanting to be entrepreneurs because a lot of people are just tired of how companies have been run historically, or do you think it's going to be, kind of the same where we're going to see bailouts happen, people go back, and what's kind of your stance on culture right now?
I think that there's going to be a lot of people who want to. My fear is, and you know this, being an entrepreneur yourself, that a crowded space makes it difficult to be heard. Okay, so if you have a lot of people rushing to do that, it makes sometimes the best voice get drowned out. And if we are flooding the market with money right now that's being basically absorbed, no productivity, will there be capital available for the next wave of entrepreneurs? And what the markets are telling us is we're reassessing risk every day. So if I have money and an entrepreneur comes up to me and says, I have a great idea, and then all of a sudden something that was trading at $100 yielding 3% is now trading maybe at $50 yielding 5%, and the risk-free rate is practically zero. I don't know if I want to put my money at risk. That's pretty attractive. Okay, so there's going to be it's like a snow globe. We're shaking it up.
Although I'm excited to see, I think, a new wave of entrepreneurs who will actually hustle, because I'm a bit tired of hearing people be like, oh, I have an idea, I'm just going to get money for that. And I'm like, I've never had an investor in my entire journey as an entrepreneur. Everything I've done has been 100% pure hustle. Granted, I didn't have a lot of startup costs to get, my concept off the ground. I just needed my laptop. But, I think with the ability to have YouTube and Google and the ability to kind of figure anything out today, I think there needs to be more weight on people investing in learning new skills so they can bootstrap and start up their own business, at least to get to that first customer, for an actual proof point to say, like, hey, we have some cash flow, so we know it's a viable investment. What's your kind of opinion on that?
Well, I do believe that we need a major re-education and retooling of a society. I mean, I'm worried about, forget about COVID-19. Before this, I was worried about job compression through to technology. And where do the people go? I mean, forget about this. You know, you look out and, you know, living in an urban area, you can pull up to a red light and you can see the number of rideshare cars, right? And, you know, when 60% of the cars are rideshare cars, you see that there are people who have maybe been forced into this due to reductions in other areas, due to efficiency. And now, I mean, let's face it, the autonomous car is coming. Where do those people get compressed out? Because it appears that your major auto companies are going to become technology companies, and they're going to team up with rideshare companies and have these massive fleets. So where do those people go next? I mean, so now you throw something like this in there, and, you know, boy, I really don't want to say this. I don't want to be a doom and gloom, but a lot of times major corporations, big ones, will use a situation like this to thin the herd, so to speak. And, you know, maybe if they're laying off 1,000 people, they may only hire back 800. And there's 200 people out there displaced. So yes, retooling, absolutely. A concern and something I look at and say, wow, where do these people migrate to next as they keep getting displaced by technology? That's a huge question. And I don't have the answer, because we are not going to stop improving technology.
Yeah.
And you know, you look at what's going on with AI and all the great advances that are going on, the speed of what we're doing, the fact that all these computers are now linked together is a world unto its own, that we kind of are living in dog years. Things are moving so fast. Not to insult dogs, but happen to love them, but, you know, we're moving quickly. What do we do? And it is an interesting problem. And it was amazing that 6-7 weeks ago, we had this historically low unemployment. That was phenomenal. And that number didn't include all the other people out there, like yourself, or 1099 contractors, or the people driving Uber and Lyft.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah. Okay. So I know I could pick your brain for hours and talk to you for hours about business, but I want to keep this not relatively short, but, you know, we gotta have
where do you have to go?
Yeah, right. I'm like, I have nowhere to go, but you know, I think the YouTube viewers might lose their attention span at some point. So if you could wrap it up with 3 takeaways on where people should spend their time right now, where they should invest their money, assuming they have a little bit of disposable income, whether that's as a business owner or an individual, and how they should be thinking about their resources right now, what would those 3 takeaways be?
Okay, first of all, as a person running a business, I have asked in the past 2 weeks more of the people who work with me. And it's really important as a manager, if you are doing that, make note, because when we come out of this and things start to accelerate, you cannot forget what they did for you at this time. And they will need to be rewarded. So don't give them lip service. Also, as a senior manager, letters are nice. Phone calls are better. I've been calling people up and down the whole company saying, how you doing? I'm letting them know how we're doing. I'm letting them know they can relax. You know, I'm being straight with them. Communicate directly to your people as well as you can. Obviously, if you have 100,000 employees, you can't, other than through emails or through, you know, breaking it down to divisions.
Mm-hmm.
But communicate to people.
Mm-hmm.
They're just as scared as everybody else. And if you can alleviate one or two pressures on their plate, you have an obligation to do that. Also, call your clients,
Mm-hmm.
call your vendors,
Mm-hmm.
keep the communication going. And you know what? Every now and then, don't do it with a keyboard
Mm-hmm.
and voice, because right now people will receive the human voice. That's my biggest thing right now. Take this time as a manager. You have this reset to look at your product, look at your organization, look at your value proposition, and say, I have a little window here where I can improve it. What can I do that may be normal at the normal pace I don't have the luxury of doing? Utilize the time to make your organization better. So when this is over, you will prosper. You will deliver a better product. We are doing that extensively right now.
Mm-hmm.
That is our big focus. How do we get better? How do we improve?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and if need be right now, and if you have the wherewithal, maybe bring in another set of eyes if there's like a high-end consulting firm that you respect, which we're doing. We're analyzing. We're trying to purify our product.
Mm-hmm.
So if people have those resources, do that now. But keep your employees paramount.
Mm-hmm.
That is where my mind is right now.
Yeah.
And also looking for opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Looking for opportunity. We have shifts going on in industries. We have industries that will not be the same. I think it's going to be a long time before this society gets together in large crowds. I think it's going to be a long time before maybe restaurants are at capacity. So how can we help that owner in that certain industry
Mm-hmm.
through some form of automation, target marketing, whatever you may do, social media? How can we help that person assimilate to a newer business model that they didn't choose? They didn't choose the new business model.
Right.
And they're forced to react.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other mindset I have, is how and where can we be a benefit? Can we be a value to new areas coming out of this? That's a big process that I spend a lot of time on. And as I tell right now, I would tell managers, keep as much powder dry as possible. Keep powder dry. Keep
So
money.
for us younger managers, what does that analogy mean?
It means be stingy with your cash. Be smart how you manage it.
Okay.
Okay, that's what keeping your powder dry means. It's keeping some cash in there, you know.
I don't know. There's a lot of other ways we can interpret that one.
Oh, you're. I would know nothing about that. I've just been a businessman who came in the late '70s. So anyway, oh Taylor, you're a riot. But no, seriously, your cash is king. How you deploy it, how you use it, covet it. Think. I would tell. Look, the first thing I would do right now, and I've done it, is do a 13-week budget and see where you can save money, know what it's going to cost, know what you have, and you know, the top part of my budget is my people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then there's various applications below that that we need, and then there's down the line.
Mm-hmm.
Prioritize it, do the 13-week budget,
mm-hmm.
and live by it. That would be the one thing I would tell. And I don't care if it's a dry cleaner or if it's a major corporation.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my Bible. Okay, and I adjust it every week with my controller. We go over it. Where are we at? Where can we save? Do we have any unexpected expenses coming in? And live by that. Keep as much cash liquid as you can. Take advantage, try and take advantage of all these programs if you can. There are several, they are confusing, but if you don't have an accountant or lawyer at your disposal, try and find someone who can make heads or tails out of this with you. Get yourself in the queue. You may not get the money for 4 or 6 weeks, but if you're in the queue, you're going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it extends at 13 weeks. So, you know, that's the advice I would be giving people right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Pat. It's always a pleasure. You gave a lot of amazing insights, and I can't wait to share it.
It's always fun. It's usually when we're talking, there's 2 salads in front of us. You know, I miss getting together with you, and I can't wait to this to be over again, and we'll get together and have a drink. It's
absolutely.
I miss the laughs, Taylor.
Well,
you have a great one and stay well, my friend.
Absolutely. You too, Pat. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.